Wisdom. It's an incredibly valuable asset. Some would say more precious than gold. It's attractive, appealing, admirable. Conversely, a lack of wisdom is the basis of immaturity, blind spots, and bad decisions. Wisdom. It can be gained over time, but it can't be rushed. But wisdom can be shared. That's precisely what we are here to do right now. Today, we are here to hack wisdom, to distill it, to understand it, and to process it. Why? To get better at life. Welcome to The Main Thing. This is your new 9-minute podcast. I'm your host, Skip Linneberg, and I've set out to interview the wisest people I know. We'll see what we can learn from each one when they're faced with an incredibly difficult, soul-piercing question. Welcome back to the Main Thing podcast. I'm your host, Skip Linneberg, coming to you from Parkwood Studios. I'm sending out a special warm welcome to my subscribers and my patrons. Thank you for helping to keep the pipeline of wisdom flowing. Before we get too far into it, would you do me a quick favor? Would you invest 2 minutes to rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts? When you post a review or rating, it really helps boost the visibility of our show. You will be helping others discover these 9-minute doses of wisdom. My guest today is a new friend. He's an author and a gifted communicator, and a man of strong faith, as you will soon discover. R.L. Shawver grew up in a small town in West Virginia. Working in the IT and data profession, he claims to have made a career over-analyzing everything, but now he is turning those analytical and communication skills into writing and speaking, in part to help process his traumas and victories. R.L. is the father of 2 boys and the proud husband of Stephanie. In recent years, he has been pouring his focus into mental, physical, and spiritual health. Today, he wants to share his learning and insights to help us get it right in 2021 and beyond. Now, settle in. Over the next 9 minutes, you will discover why R.L. Shawver is one of the wisest people I know. R.L. Shawver, good morning and welcome to the Main Thing podcast.
Good morning, Skip. Honored to be here, man. Honored to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, you have written a terrific new book called For This Child I Have Prayed. I have finished this book. It was inspiring, dramatic. It was emotional, reassuring, just very real. Tell us about your book, and I hope maybe give our listeners the elevator pitch. And before I forget, this book, in the show notes, you'll find a link to this book, which is now in our bookstore, The Main Thing book collection, the curated collection on bookshop.org. But RL, give us the elevator pitch on your book, please.
Yeah, it's completely me being 100%. This is what's going on. My youngest son had 6 heart surgeries his first 18 months. When he was 2.5 months old, he ended up getting rushed to the hospital. He had turned blue, and and then we were talking to the doctor, and I was thinking everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And then the doctor's like, hey, you have to have open heart surgery on your 2.5-month-old child. Oh, and to make things even better, it's not a corrective surgery. It's a temporary surgery to get him to where he's bigger.
Oh, right.
So it's really a story about me telling from my perspective what we went through, how I handled it, and how I fought back for my son, and how I learned to actually wage war for my child.
Let's take care of sort of a customary question here with every guest, is to explain to our audience how you and I know each other.
Yeah.
And would you like to get that ball rolling, and I'll give it another kick as it's going down the field?
I would love that. So, Charleston, West Virginia is probably, West Virginia as a whole is probably home to some of the sweetest and most fantastic people I've ever met in life.
I agree.
So many good. I've been out of West Virginia for over 10 years, and I still have people who I can count on to have my back. And one of those people who have my back is Will Gibson.
Will Gibson.
Yeah. Will was like, hey, RL has published a book. Skip, you should talk to him about it.
Right.
And Will and Susan, just fantastic people,
They sure are. They go to my church. Will is a good buddy of mine. A couple times we've been sick here, or people in my family have been sick, or multiple of us have been sick, and they bring a pot of amazing homemade chicken soup that helps us get better. Will Gibson, thank you so much for introducing me to R.L. Shawver, my new friend.
I am honored to have won that title.
Thank you. RL, let's get to the pivotal question and the essence of this show. RL Shawver, what's the main thing you've learned in your lifetime so far?
Skip, I'm going to go a little bit off script a little bit and just say, for me, I don't want to push this on anybody else. I'm a Christian. And so like what I'm about to say is really geared towards that. I would invite you to just continue to listen. I'm not trying to push my faith on you. I just want to share what's been powerful for me.
Sure.
And the main thing for me that has really radically been a part of my life has just been my morning time with God, like having time every single morning to know, to dig into God's love for me. There's so much wisdom that I've had in that. There's wisdom that's helped me in my career. It's helped me with my book. It's helped me with my relationships. And it's cool because every single day when I wake up, I go get my coffee, spend some time with God, dwell on his love and his goodness towards me. And I start to dig that out. And God starts to just really speak. Sometimes it's things I don't want to hear. Sometimes I'm angry at God.
I get it. So your wisdom, the main thing you've learned is how to start your day. And you start every day, the beginning of your day with God. You spend time alone with him to dig into his love for you.
Well, there is coffee there too.
Okay. RL, when did this become apparent to you? Like, when did this crystallize as something that was wisdom, truth, and it was how you were going to live?
When I saw the difference it made in me.
Okay.
I started it because I married a girl who was a ordained minister.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. Steph's ordained. And I was like, man, I'm going to have to step up my game if I'm going to be anything, or else she's going to be just like, whatever.
Yeah. What happens when you don't start your day that way? How does it go differently? What's it feel like? What's it look like if you forget to do that, or before you started doing that?
Yeah, before I started doing that, I think that's probably the coolest thing. I was chronically late. I was also filled with a lot of anxiety. I was constantly like thrown off balance by people's opinions and thoughts and shoulds and stuff like that. I worried way too much about what people thought about me. And then when I started like spending time like digging into God's word and God's love, I started realizing like what was true, what wasn't. I started realizing the real truth of wisdom, which is perspective,
Folks, as you read the book, you're going to learn some new weapons and tactics to fight spiritual warfare. And one of those is prayer. And you reading your book has already influenced how I'm praying differently and better, more powerfully. Give us a few tips on how to pray when we're in the midst of a struggle, especially an extended, long struggle.
Well, first of all, one of the things I always like to address people's hurts and emotions, because like the cool thing is I grew up in a way that I didn't think my emotions were important.
Okay.
And I thought God didn't think my emotions were important. Well, let's just worry about the facts and struggles. And one of the things that I recently learned when in my morning readings was that God really does care about my pain and my hurt. And so one of the first things I'd say is like, hey, don't be afraid to tell God you're mad. Don't be afraid to tell God you're frustrated, upset. Tell him how you feel. He cares. And second of all, as far as praying through things, God's promises are true. And, we've talked about this a little bit too.
Yes.
But the way I see things, and this may not line up with the way some people believe things, even as Christians, is that, we've been given power and authority here on earth, and we are fellow workers with God. And I do believe that, yes, we are hands and feet to do physical things, but I also believe that we have spiritual authority.
Yeah, hands and feet, like bringing a pot of steaming homemade chicken soup.
Which is God, like moving. It's really exciting because it's like, that's God moving. Like when you love on somebody, when a mom loves her kid, when you love on somebody and take them soup, even if you don't like them, like you just take them soup, like because they need soup, like that's loving people. Yeah. That's God. That's the hand of God. But also I strongly believe too, that like our words have power in what we say. And when we agree with God and we say God's word out of our mouths, I think it has an incredible amount of power. You kind of come to this logical problem of, like, if God's promises are true, why do I see them not happening? And that's where it gets different.
Yeah.
And the only answer that I have is that we have an authority to step up and say, hey, I'm going to pray with God. I'm going to agree with God. I'm going to get in agreement with him. I've seen a lot of times where God answers big and little prayers in big ways. And it's just, you come to a point where you're starting to agree with God that you start to say, wow, you know what? I'm expecting this to happen because God just does it,
I do know. If you're listening and you want to up your prayer game, you want to level up, read the book. It helped me to be realistic, as you said, in the conversation with God, to pray specifically, to believe as you pray, to base your prayer and weave scriptural truth into your prayer. And if you've enlisted the help of others to pray with you, to be completely aligned. Like, don't let someone else pray differently for that thing that you need, that you're asking God for. Pray exactly the same way. Get very aligned on how you're doing it. And those were things that I remember that stuck with me and that I've incorporated into my prayer life. So thank you for that.
I'm honored that you got all that from my book.
All right, this has been a blast. We're going to leave it there and wrap up, but I thank you so much for your time, the conversation today, your heart that you pour into the book and your faith that you pour into the book. Thank you so much.
Skip, I'm really honored to be on here, man. You have a fantastic podcast. I've listened through a lot of it, and I'm looking forward to listening to a lot more and keeping track of it. Keep it up, man. It's good stuff.
Thanks. Wow, 9 minutes is up. That goes by incredibly fast, doesn't it? Time flies when you're hacking wisdom. I hope you're left wanting more. Sync up with us again next time on The Main Thing for 9 more minutes of wisdom. Let's be honest, it's not easy to ask for help or talk about money. Hey, it's Skip here, and many listeners like you continue to ask me, what do you need to continue to develop and build this show? Well, for context, it takes our team about 15 hours of work to produce each one of these packages of wisdom that we deliver to you in podcast form. Really, what we need as we enter season 3 of this show is funding to cover our costs. So in response, I formed a site on the Patreon platform where you can elect to become a supporting patron of the Main Thing podcast. Now, there are 3 levels you might consider, ranging from $6 to $27 per month. It's all safe and secure, and you can explore the options at patreon.com/themainthingpodcast. Now, how will we use the funding? Funds provided by you and other patrons will be used to defray the costs of production, promotion, and our recurring technology expenses each month. In short, you will be helping to keep this pipeline of wisdom flowing. Thanks.